Hi, everyone. My name is Rosalie Olmsted. I am WiCyS Executive Assistant. It is an honor to have you all here today with WiCyS Strategic Partner Workday. But before I get started, I'd like to give you a brief overview of the WiCyS organization. We often go by our acronym WiCyS because that is exactly what we are, a global cyber sisterhood. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization with a mission to recruit, retain, and advance women in cybersecurity. Our community is made up of over 10,000 members in 99 different countries. We have 70 professional affiliates and over 300 student chapters around the world. We offer a variety of initiatives and skills development programs, including our leadership series, Job Board Plus Plus, the Speakers Bureau, our annual conference, which is coming up in Dallas, Texas from April 2nd through the 5th, mentor-mentee program, book club, and so much more. We owe all of our wonderful initiatives and programs to our strategic partners who fund us year-round. Our Tier 1 partners being Akamai, Amazon, Bloomberg, Carnegie Mellon University's Software Engineering Institute, Cisco, Ford Motor Company, Google, Lockheed Martin, Microsoft, Optum, Sandia National Labs, and SentinelOne. Please do not forget to ask your questions throughout the webinar. If you have a question, drop it in the question box below, and if time permits at the end, we will be answering them during a Q&A session. If we run out of time at the end, please feel free to connect with everyone on this webinar via LinkedIn. And then lastly, if you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to the WiCyS newsletter to stay up to date on all of our upcoming events and programs. You can find it at wicys.org in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Awalin at Workday.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. So today, Michelle and we're going to talk about pathways to cybersecurity. And of course, while we're doing that, we will talk about our journeys and how we joined cybersecurity and what are we doing, our day-to-day work. And hopefully we can inspire many of you to join cybersecurity and also stay in this field. So yeah, as I said, right now I'm working as a principal engineer in the cyber defense team at Workday. And my day-to-day job, I use AI and machine learning to solve problems in cybersecurity. I'm originally from Bangladesh, and after my undergrad, I moved to USA for my higher education, and I finished my graduate studies from University of Maryland, College Park, and then I just stayed in the DC metro area, and now I call Northern Virginia my new home. And yeah, let me introduce you my colleague, Michelle. Michelle, go ahead.
Thank you, Awalin. Hi, everyone. And first and foremost, thank you to everyone that has joined us today. Like Awalin mentioned, we hope that you are inspired to enter the field, and not only enter the field, but stay in the field. So my name is Michelle Morris. I am a business continuity program manager here at Workday, and I sit on the cybersecurity governance team. So my day-to-day includes really making sure that we are resilient against any type of cyber threats, and make sure that in the case that there is a cyber threat, natural disaster, that we are still operational and functional. I work out of our McLean, Virginia office. I am originally from DC, born and raised, and I live in the Maryland area. Back to you, Awalin.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. So today this is just like the high level agenda. We will talk about like state of cybersecurity workforce, our journeys, share some stories from our coworkers at Workday. And also hopefully we will get to introduce you to various aspects of cybersecurity. And after sharing the journeys and after sharing some tips and tricks, we will have some time for Q&A. I think, Michelle, maybe you can take over state of the workforce.
Yes. So we'll start off by talking about the current state of the cybersecurity workforce, go over some statistics, and talk about perception versus reality. So cybersecurity workforce current facts. So there are approximately 3.5 million cybersecurity workers, with only a 1 to 2% employment rate. 46% of cybersecurity workers have a college degree, or they are working in a field closely related to their degree. So while the cybersecurity workforce is still growing rapidly and producing many new graduates, the gap between talent supply and industry demand still persists. So some barriers that limit the cybersecurity talent pool are the visa and clearance requirements. They restrict international students, who actually make up 60% of the cybersecurity PhDs and the majority of master's graduates, from joining the workforce. So perception versus reality, women and non-binary representation in cybersecurity. So only 37% of working women believe that cybersecurity offers job security. Women are generally less inclined to self-promote compared to men, even when they qualify. So the reality, women constitute 25% of the cybersecurity workforce. Women in cybersecurity face exclusion at twice the rate of men, revealing the workplace inclusion challenges. And for non-binary individuals, they face way more unique challenges, including data scarcity and workplace inclusion issues. It's also important to note here, while the focus is on women and non-binary individuals, men are still a very important ally. For instance, earlier in my career, I had a male manager that was very instrumental to my growth. He taught me how to fail. I know that might sound bad, but he taught me how to fail and fail fast, and trust myself, and to work in autonomous environments. So again, male allyship is very important. And then here we will take a look at some post-secondary degrees, men versus women. And as you can see, there's a large discrepancy between men and women in each category of degrees. So certificates, associates, bachelor's, master's, doctorals, men are still the men have holding these degrees make up way more of the total than women do. And these are individuals that are following the traditional post-secondary path into cybersecurity. Okay, and then we will now shift the focus a little bit to some cyber journeys from our fellow workmates. So we have some quotes from two lovely individuals here, Heather and Indy, both who have actually transitioned into cybersecurity from non-traditional backgrounds. And I actually have the pleasure of knowing and collaborating with both women here. Heather is actually on the same team as me. So Heather Stratton, she is a senior program manager on the cybersecurity governance team. And here is a quote from her. So transitioning into cybersecurity has been an incredible journey. I spent the first half of my career in the salon industry building skills in creativity, communication, and adaptability. Then I went back to school for my business degree and gained invaluable program management experience at two national laboratories. Those skills seamlessly translated into my role on Workday cybersecurity governance team, where I now manage our awareness program. My journey is proof that diverse experiences can lead to unexpected and rewarding opportunities in tech. I love that, Heather. And then from Indy Matto, she is a cybersecurity engineer on the incident management and crisis management team. So from Indy, cybersecurity is the perfect path for those that do not limit themselves to traditional career journeys. I have studied international politics and economics, worked with the UN on nuclear disarmament, analyzed data in antitrust economics, and negotiated software sale contracts. The multitude of skills and experiences I've gathered fits perfectly in incident management. Often I find myself responding to incidents that don't have a clear resolution or require detailed understanding of certain parts of the product. Coming from a diverse background is an asset rather than a hindrance in cybersecurity. I love that. Okay, and now I will pass it to Awalin, who will discuss various verticals of cybersecurity.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. So we already learn about the journeys of two of our workmates, and you see that they're coming from different backgrounds and also working in different aspects and different verticals of cybersecurity. So, for example, I will just mention two or three teams that I collaborate with on daily basis at my job. So I'm part of the cyber defense team at Workday, and underneath that we have very different teams working on different aspects. So you see like governance, risk, and compliance team. That's where Michelle is. This team develops policies, standards, framework specific to cybersecurity governance, and also they deal with risk and maintains like what are some of the regulatory aspects of security posture. And then there's operational security, which is basically a day-to-day incident response and looking at what different cyber threats may or may not be trying to attack an organization, and how to prevent them, how to respond to them, what can we do immediately versus what can we do as a long term, what type of measurement we should take and what type of measurement people are taking day by day. So this is more like operationalized security. So, and another aspect is more research focused, I would say, like threat intelligence. So it's a lot of researchers and cyber analysts. They're not only that monitoring the systems of an organizations, but they're also monitoring like what are some of the emerging threats, what type of malwares are trending in the cyber world, what are the current news, what is affecting our day-to-day life versus like a long-term effect. But they gather those intelligence and makes a long-term strategy and shares with different teams. So if you are more into like a research focused, you want to focus on like predicting what's going to happen, happening right now, maybe intelligence is good for you. Or if you want more day-to-day activities, like every day I have to um, fix some problem, more like think of you as a police officer. So then operational security can be a good thing. And governance risk is more like a very high level overarching umbrella. That can also be something. So these are just some of the teams I personally work on daily basis, but it's different organizations have different categorization, and it's just not one way to categorize cybersecurity work. But I will talk more like another framework, which is standardized by a National Institution of Standard and Technology from USA. So they categorize cybersecurity framework into like six verticals. So first step is like identify. So first is like, how do I identify what are my threats and what are my assets? So for example, if I'm a security guard in a building or in a bank, first I have to see like what are some of my risks and what I'm trying to protect. Maybe I'm trying to protect the assets. Maybe I'm trying to protect the people who live in the building. Maybe I'm trying to protect if there's like money in this building. So assessing the risk, assessing the asset, and identify this. Then the second step is like, okay, I know what's at risk, what I need to protect, but how do I do it? So this is more like preventive action, having different types of security in place to protect it. And next step is detection, which is another team I work very closely. So detection is like obviously continuous monitoring. Okay, I did all of the things to protect, but that's not enough. Things can still happen. Like you can get all the vaccines, but you can still get like a new disease. It's never enough. So always continuously monitoring and figuring out like if there's anything suspicious in your system, and what type of negative effect that can cause in your system. So that comes detection. So obviously, once you detect, you have to take action. Like, what do you do? So that comes the response to that cyber incident. So sometimes the incident management can be immediately responding to the system, immediately fix the system. If you're a doctor, think about what you'll do with a patient. So it's very similar thing: triaging the system, mitigation, and uh, take measures so that it never happens again. So recovery is the next step. You immediately fix the system, but again, now you have to restore the system in the previous step or even better step so it doesn't happen again. So all of these things, and now you have to have like a centralized system where everything is talking to each other and they have a way to be in sync. And that's where governance comes from. So it looks at the entire organizational context, it looks at the entire risk management, the policy, the oversight. All of this is part of governance. So governance is a very it always existed, but now NIST is also focusing on it, that all cybersecurity organizations have it and have a very well-defined governance infrastructure. So you think about it, like, what interests you as a person? Like, do you want to be in identification stage, protect, detect, respond, recover, or governance? But also there's a lot of overlap. Different organizations will have different structure, but I think it helps to understand what type of work interests us as a person, or what type of skill we have where we can use these and uh, basically figure out like which way we can focus on. So once we think about it, like, okay, there are many different ways to enter, we can start thinking about it. And now we will share some more in-depth perspective sharing with our journey. Michelle.
Thanks, Awalin. So again, this topic hits home for the both of us, and why we really, really wanted to present on this today, because we both come from non-traditional cybersecurity backgrounds. And so I'll share a little bit more about mine. As you can see here on the screen, this is a visual or overview of my transition. So I actually started out as an EMT, and then I transitioned into a paramedic, and then I was a paramedic firefighter in DC. And I did that for about 6 years, I believe. However, unfortunately, I was not fulfilled, and I started to looking into the technology field. But like most people, did not know where to start, right? And so I didn't originally start in tech. So when I started to think about how to transition, I was very strategic about my next move. And so at the time, AWS, the cloud was the big talk, and it was exciting. It was new. And so I thought to myself, how crazy would it be to actually work there? And so again, I was very strategic. I looked for roles that aligned with my background, as it was my firefighter paramedic background. I actually landed a role at Amazon AWS, initially as an environmental health and safety personnel. But again, strategy, I thought to myself, if I can just get my foot in the door, and then I will work my way into tech. So I spent a little bit of time as environmental health and safety personnel before transitioning into technology within AWS. I saw an open role for program management, and I just thought to myself, if I could at least speak to the hiring manager for 10 minutes so that I'm able to translate my background into the necessary skills that they're looking for this role, then I'm pretty confident that I might be able to land this. And so it happened. A woman named Charlotte at the time, that was my very first manager in tech. I spoke with her and I gave her a rundown of my background, that I was really willing to learn. So this is where self-advocacy is very important in your transition, because when you get your moment to speak to the hiring manager, to the recruiter, whoever, you have to make sure that you're really selling yourself, selling your skills, and why you could be a good fit. And so Charlotte, who I love and adore to this day, she really took a liking to me. Long story short, she hired me into that program management role, and I spent the next 4 years as a program manager at AWS. And so throughout my journey at AWS, throughout my time as a paramedic firefighter, I've developed and fostered skills that prepared me for this role in business continuity. Some of those skills being emergency crisis management, leadership. As a paramedic, I am taking control over a scene, and I am the leader, and I'm delegating. That's very important in my role as a program manager and in my role as business continuity. And so self-advocacy really took me far. And then on the job training. So I made sure to be strategic within my work. I took on and was asked to be exposed to different areas of technology during my time at AWS. I made sure to cross collaborate, but made sure that it made sense. And then I continuously upskill even now. So once I transitioned into Workday as the business continuity program manager, I was so motivated and I wanted to continue to grow with the direction of cybersecurity. So it motivated me to actually start an undergrad degree in cybersecurity and information assurance. And that has been such a great thing, just learning and really immersing myself in cybersecurity, because cybersecurity, I really feel you have to be passionate about it. It is not a passionless career, right? You have to be passionate. You have to continue to learn. And so another thing that I like to do personally is when I'm introduced to something or something is my specific domain, I like to really immerse myself into it. So I really immerse myself into everything business continuity and everything adjacent to it. So governance, risk and compliance, crisis management, incident response, emerging threats. It's all adjacent to what I do. So I really just immerse myself in the world of resiliency, and so that I'm always relevant, because it doesn't matter to develop these skills and not stay relevant, right? You want to make sure that what you're doing is still relevant and that you're growing with the direction of cybersecurity. And so that is how I landed here at Workday. And I'm so excited and thrilled to be a part of the organization. And I'm most proud that Workday really does put a lot of emphasis and really encourage diversity in backgrounds and skill sets. So I know that was a mouthful, but that was Michelle's cybersecurity pathway. And so now we'll give you some examples about this may apply to you, and hopefully it's helpful, of non-traditional background occupations and how individuals in these occupations might transition, or how they may find the relevance in what they're currently doing to cybersecurity. So first, a customer service representative. So the relevance here, a customer service associate engages with a diverse audience on a day-to-day. They may excel at explaining compliance policies, collaborating with different teams, managing stakeholders, and presenting audit findings. The key skill here is customer service and communication. So I do also want to point out, everything does not necessarily have to be technical in cybersecurity, and this is a great example. So physical security. A physical security guard who actively monitors their physical environment on a day-to-day, they may excel at incident response, responding to cyber attacks and threats, or policy enforcement. And the key skills here are attention to detail, auditing, monitoring, and problem solving. And then we have an example of individuals who may be teachers or administrators. So, teachers and administrators who educate students may excel at cybersecurity training and awareness. The relevance here is teaching, managing, and engaging with students, parents, and other faculties. And of course, this key skill is teaching. So, healthcare workers, the relevance. Healthcare professionals manage and access patients' information on a daily. This may transfer well into identity and access management. So the key skills here are user access management. So I hope that gave someone on the call a little insight, or the light bulb went off like, hey, I do that, or hey, I have those skills. And so if you don't have them on your resume, you may want to include them on your resume after this. And we'll talk more about transferable skills shortly. And I will pass it back to Awalin.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. I feel like there's a lot of things to take in here. So my cybersecurity journey, I will say, I come from a technical background, but also I never thought while I started my career that I will ever work in cybersecurity field. So as a sci-fi nerd, I'm a big fan of science fiction and futuristic novel. So I always wanted to learn about AI and machine learning. So when I was looking for like where to go for grad school, I wanted to do like everything AI, everything AI. So I came to the US and started focusing my research on AI. But eventually I learned that no matter what you build, it's the humans that are building this system and the humans that are using this system. And in computer science research community, there was a gap and also some sort of gatekeeping, like people didn't do enough research on how humans are interacting with those systems, whether it's like automated or AI, or how humans are using the analytics system. And eventually that drew my attention. So I finished my research on human computer interaction, and my first job was as a research scientist. And I was working as a research scientist on creating visual interactive analytics systems that uses a lot of like AI, machine learning, a lot of data intensive work, but it was nothing related with security. But using that analytics background, I ended up making a system that was using like how people are interacting with different systems, if the systems are secure or not, when they log in, when they log out. So like I started to learn a little bit, but again, I didn't think like I will ever have like a cybersecurity engineer job title. So I was still working as a researcher. My second job was actually a full stack software engineer who's developing like incident response system. So first I didn't even feel like I could be qualified to apply to that role. So I was like, no, like I have no idea about cybersecurity. Um, Never even took any course in the undergrad or in grad school. So definitely I will fail. And when I looked at like people who work in cybersecurity, they have a different type of persona or personality as you see in the media. So I just couldn't identify myself. So I was kind of worried. I still prepared for the job, but my preparation was completely like a software engineer, how you prepare for a software engineer job. So the nice thing is, the team that interviewed me, they figured out or they felt that I can do the job. But again, when I started it, I felt kind of nervous, intimidated, and sometimes I felt like maybe this is not my place. Everyone knows so much. They all come from security background. A lot of them come from military background. Sometimes I didn't even understand what people are talking about. Um, so I was like, okay, I will Google things. I will learn about those terminology during my second job because I am developing a tool that will be used by the security analyst. So it doesn't matter how much AI, how much machine learning I'm using if I don't understand the domain. So initially, I tried taking online courses. So that was very helpful. But again, I had to push myself to go and talk to people. So I schedule a lot of like one-on-one meetings with my coworkers, and they were very helpful. Uh, I was like, oh my God, first of all, I'm the only woman in the room. And also, like, this is my first cybersecurity job. So I was I was nervous, but I felt like people are very helpful. And a lot of time they will just explain their entire workflow, like what do they do from the beginning to the end every day, or what's their end goal after 2 weeks of work or a quarter of work. So I learned a lot, like how they work and what is their pain point, what problems they are trying to solve. And I learned more about like the security workflow. So since I work more closely with cyber incident management teams at those jobs, I got more familiar with like incident response workflow and also like detection workflow, like how you detect different types of cyber incident and how you respond to them. And then I offered like, okay, I don't have like the core knowledge how you do it, but what I can offer is like I can make your work easier for you. So you're doing a lot of repetition work, maybe I can automate some of the work. And you are looking at data every day to figure out like, hey, did I see this type of malware before? Did I see this type of attack before? Am I going to see it again? So then I said, okay, this is how I can use my skill to make your life easier and less painful. So then I started focusing more on this type of work and see how I can use my skill to be more ingrained in the cybersecurity workforce. And then I started developing more like AI ML tools for detection and response. So that was my third job. Again, like the team was really great and they were very helpful, encouraging. One of the nice thing I liked about those work, I got to work with like many different teams together. I was showing like how cybersecurity has like an entire framework, different teams doing different things. So I got to work with many different teams together, and that really encouraged me. And I think like this is how I get my energy when I talk to different people. I learn from their work, and I get to like, you're doing this, you're doing that. Like let me merge and then try to make something that helps both teams. So I got to learn more about it, but then the pandemic happened. And when, I mean, it was a very different time for for actually all of our life. The entire world was different. So at that time, I thought like, I'm very lucky to be alive. I need to do something, something different. So I quit my corporate job. I joined the White House as a senior advisor to help federal government in their effort to pandemic response and recovery from the pandemic, and helping the American people to get more government loan and different types of like pandemic relief. So in that role, I also used AI and data science, but it was a bit it was like a shift from cybersecurity. So I was not working in the cyber domain anymore. For that 2 years, I was working in a special role and helped like the U.S. government senior officials to develop analytical system for that. So the special project was done, and now it's time to think like, what should I do? Should I stay at the government, or should I go back to my corporate role? So I was thinking, and then I had this talk with Workday's teammates and the recruiter, and I really liked how they approached the interview and how they approached the recruitment process. And I thought like, this feels like a team that respects people, and I think I made the right decision. So I joined Workday, and now I started working as a engineer again. And again, I'm working with like cybersecurity data. So I approach this as like, okay, how I can use my skill in this domain. So in my previous job, I worked with small business data with American people who are affected, American small business that are affected by the pandemic. And then now I'm working with cybersecurity data, which the infrastructure or any organization, how it can be affected by different types of risk. So I think of it as like it's a data problem and how human use data. And in my previously, when I was a student, again, I used this type of similar approach, whether I worked with healthcare data or social network data. So a lot of those fields are related to me. Like Michelle was talking about transferable skills. To me, like we are all trying to solve a problem, whatever the domain is. So no matter what domain I come from, I can try to relate how I can use the skill and the approach developed in one field, one domain, and I can use the similar approach in another domain. So just wrapping it up, like, yes, programming language is super important if we want to stay in technical role. So in cybersecurity world, programming language wise, Python is very important. I did not learn it in school. I learned about Python and AWS and cloud, everything on the job. So I really am thankful for the teams who actually gave us projects and like, okay, go figure, like you have 2 weeks, learn this new technology and make a prototype. Even if you never work on that, 2 weeks is not a big deal. Just go and do something. And background wise, yes, I did have like theoretical knowledge about AI, ML, and like I had a heavy focus on analytics. But now I'm using it in cybersecurity, and I learned mostly on the job, mostly from my colleague, but I also took some online courses to get familiarized myself with many different terms. So every time I don't have to look it up everything. And some other things that help is some theoretical background about computer networks, operating system, database system, and secure coding practice. So this type of thing, because when I was taking these courses in school, they didn't talk much about security, but security can be like applicable in all of those cases. So I feel like once we start working in cybersecurity field, it's better if we have like a holistic understanding. So even if we don't have background of any of those things, it's still helpful to just know a little bit like how those things work. And for me, it was the other way around. So I knew those things, but I didn't know like how security works. But when I started to learn more about cybersecurity, like things started fall into places. Like, oh yes, if you attack here, then the damage can be done over there because these things are all connected. And so I mentioned like how you can reuse those things. Just to be more specific use cases, these are some of the things I have seen, not just in my life, but also my friends and my coworkers, how they are coming to cybersecurity industry. Just one of the reasons is like, obviously there's a lot of jobs. And even if there isn't like job posting, sometimes you can create your own path. So I come from AI, ML, and analytics background, and that was helpful for me. Like everything uses data, everything uses analytics, even if you are like security or healthcare, business, bank. Some of those examples could be like automation and also like fraud detection. If you were working and thinking like, okay, how I can detect if your bank account is being hacked or not. So in that case, you can look at like what are the common workflow, like how people actually use versus when someone is trying to hack into your system, how these activities look like. So in this case, traditional ML AI models can be very helpful. And so basically, it's like all about looking at previous patterns and trying to predict like what will happen in future, if there's a trend, if something is different, unusual, and if something is like known malicious behavior versus like, okay, it looks like non-threatening behavior. So you can use data analytics in all of those cases once you get familiarized with like how the data looks like in security world. Like, is it coming from your computer networks? Is it coming from your operating system? Or someone is trying to hack into your system, trying to give your password multiple times, trying many different types of passwords. And this can be done using data analytics. Another thing like about you can try is like user experience and design background. So that's something we still have a lot of work to do. So I see that we design a system, whether it's for end user or for security analysts, it needs to have better workflow. Like how we design system makes or breaks the system. So a lot of time we blame the user, like, oh, you don't know how to use computer, you need to be better tech savvy. But the problem is not that like we are not good enough as a user. A lot of time it's a system that's designed in a way it's not helpful for the user. So we need to be more mindful. So if you're from user experience background, that's really helpful. And again, database and big data, a lot of people come from this domain to cybersecurity, and that's extremely helpful to analyze like big chunk of data. Another thing to look at is like how to find jobs. A lot of time if you're looking at like LinkedIn or Indeed, many different job posting sites, you will not always, like if you look for cybersecurity and search for it, you may not find that type of job because the job title can vary a lot. The job title and also like the job description. So for core cybersecurity knowledge, you might find jobs that are like security analyst, cybersecurity engineer, incident manager, cybersecurity program manager. But a lot of times it will not even say security or cyber, but it's actually still doing same type of work or related. So then you see like information systems, computer system analyst, uh, network administrator, cloud support engineer, cloud specialist, database architect. So this type of role, I would say, like when you're looking for a job, even if you're trying to transition, or even if this is like your first job after graduation, try to look in many different ways, not just like one or two keywords. So now I will wrap a little bit about how we should approach as individual. So transferable skill, we will move dig deeper on that, but resiliency is another important things. The job market is not very good. It's getting better, but it might still take some time. So I would say like self-motivation, resilience, it's very important during finding a job or transition phase. We can have a lot of setbacks, but please take care of your mental health. I have heard imposter syndrome from a lot of people, but I also think like, do we actually have imposter syndrome or we just feel setbacks from other people? So let's think about it. Don't blame yourself for everything. I would like to take a break and, catch up with my friends, especially like I mentioned, like, after my government job was done, I was thinking like, what's next? What should I do? And even if I just want to do something, it's not like people are just waiting for me. I have to look for jobs in specific places. And next, very important, especially in cybersecurity area, is choosing focus area. Since it's a very diverse field, it's a fast moving field, it's important to narrow down your focus. So just because I narrow down my focus doesn't mean that I have to be in that same focus zone in the rest of my life, but at least for the first time or to begin with, it's very important. So because when people are interviewing you, it's very important to show them you actually did your homework and you have like specific interest area than just like, oh, I just want to work in cybersecurity. That's not the case. Like you can say like, hey, I want to work in incident response because that's really exciting to me. Or I want to think like a detective. So I want to work with like security detection. Or maybe I want to do research more. So I want to work in like threat intelligence. Or maybe I want to work in policy. So I want to work in like governance and risk management. So narrow down the focus is important. It helps both as both us as individual, but also the people who are hiring, they also get to know that, okay, this person is being serious. And navigating the job market is another thing. Local security focus events are very important. It can be meetup, it can be some other local groups. I think, like, I know, like, it was very different during the pandemic time, but now in-person local events are getting, again, like, more and more important, because we as people, as human, it's actually good to have connection, better connection, and leverage LinkedIn to connect with individual in a desired role. I would say, if someone just sends me like random message, it's very difficult to respond to that person and also take that person seriously. But then sometimes I see LinkedIn message, they actually did their research, and I feel like, okay, this is the person I want to pay attention, and I want to respond to their message, and I actually reach out to them. I give them my personal email so we can stay in touch. So that's that, I think, like, it's important to know, like, when people realize that you are just copy pasting message, it's actually very easy to realize, and then people don't take us seriously, then people will not take you seriously. So yeah, those type of security focus uh, experience, I think, very important as individually when we are looking for jobs. And I will go back to transferable skills again, because I mentioned, like, we will dig deeper on that. Michelle already mentioned some of it. Some of those are like more hard skills, as in, like, it's not hard, but it's like you actually need some structured way to learn those things, like how do you risk management, risk analysis, crisis management, policy. Like, this is something I don't know how people do it, but I have huge respect for policy people and technical aptitude. Data, I mentioned a lot. Monitoring and surveillance, it sounds very scary, but actually it's very, very technical, and it's also very interesting to understand, like ask more questions. Don't just believe in everything. Like, ask question, like, is my data biased? Uh, is this common for 7 days? What happens if I look at 1 month? What happens if I look at like an entire year? So how you slice and dice and look at patterns. Again, like compliance, regulatory knowledge. And now for compliance and regulatory knowledge, it's not just local. We have to look at like a global perspective. And then soft skill, like, I think we mentioned a lot of time, we emphasize like how we work with different teams, attention to details, communication skill, analytical and conflict resolution ability, and project and time management. Those are also very, very important. My manager, my manager, Shanta Ramachandran, she mentioned actually while we were developing the slides, she said like communication skill is and interpersonal skill is so important. Like a lot of time, people don't understand how important it is. And even if they have technical skill, it's really important, like because we are working with different teams and people are trying to solve a problem live. So if you don't have good communication and interpersonal skill in this field, it's very difficult to stay. So Michelle, I will give back to you.
Yes. Thanks, Awalin. Okay, so I'm be very cognizant of time so that we can get to some questions. But I do want to talk about organizational responsibility. So earlier I mentioned that Workday is fortunately an organization that really embraces diversity in skill set, diversity in background, and so forth and so on. And so I want to talk a little bit more about what other organizations can do or their responsibility to attract diverse talent in the cybersecurity field. So first, recognize, hire, and train talent. So expanding recruiting to non-traditional backgrounds and underrepresented groups. So women and non-binary people. And then also providing on-the-job training for non-traditional candidates. I've been very fortunate to have received on-the-job training in my past roles, in this role. So that is something that organizations can really get better at doing. But fortunately, again, I've been very fortunate in my career. So when you're job searching, maybe think about the reputation of the organization that you're applying to. Do they have a track record of hiring non-traditional candidates and providing them support in their transition or their training? And then this is a big one, certifications versus degrees. So as an organization, leaders can encourage leaders to recognize certifications as valid alternatives or complements to degrees in cybersecurity. As someone that is getting a undergrad degree currently, but has already transitioned, this, really hits home for me. I do have a few security related certifications. So I was, again, very fortunate in my career that leadership and hiring managers were able to consider those certifications in lieu of me having a additional degree. And then broaden the talent pool by valuing skills and hands-on expertise over traditional pathways, hoping to bridge the gap. And then internal programs create mentorship opportunities to support career growth transitions. That is very important. Even I feel like that's an individual responsibility as well. Seek out mentors, someone that is in the direction or where you see yourself or where you want to be. And if that person has the bandwidth, absolutely latch on to them. Or just other colleagues. Don't want to embarrass her right now, but Awalin is someone that I really latched onto here at Workday. She would say no, but she's someone that I truly respect and learn a lot from. And again, I just, whatever she's doing, I want to be a part of, like this talk. And then something fun, host events like hackathon and cybersecurity workshops. So again, latch on to your people that you can learn from. Awalin and I, we participated in a hackathon. And it may seem small, but I learned a lot from this hackathon. I don't have a background in AI and machine learning, but through the hackathon, I was able to learn about large language models, if I'm saying it correctly, and RAG, and all of the cool things that Awalin does and is into, and that cross collaboration. And now I have insight and can hold conversations about these things. And then people leadership. Foster environments where all voices and backgrounds are valued and included. Again, even if you, as leaders, I have a leader, Jen, who is amazing, but she really puts emphasis on inclusion and making sure that each team member, although very different backgrounds, their voices are heard as it relates to our team governance. And then again, speaking of the lovely Jen, I thought it was very important to get insights from leadership. So these are people that have the authority to hire and what they look for in hiring. And so we have a quote from Jen, my manager, Jennifer Donnell. She's the director of cybersecurity governance here at Workday. And so something that Jen provided us with is, I prioritize soft skills in candidates. Job functions can be taught, but skills like relationship building, self-awareness, and teamwork developed through life experiences are harder to teach. And fun fact, Jen actually hired Indy, who we heard from in the beginning of this as well. So that just goes to show, as a leader, she really embraces those different backgrounds and really put a lot of emphasis on your soft skills. Because I remember in my interview with her, she just told me, I can teach you cybersecurity, but I can't teach you to be the way that you are. And I absolutely love that about Jen. And then we'll hear from Shanta. One of the best things companies can do is rethink their recruiting pool. Focus on looking where there is a greater diversity of candidates in the first place, allowing you to choose the best person for the job and having those people make up a diverse workforce. And Shanta is the director of cyber defense here. and is also Awalin's manager. So now we have a little insight of what actual hiring managers and directors look for in candidates. So please keep that in mind. And then resources. So there are many different learning pathways. I wouldn't put too much emphasis on the how and focus more so on the end result. So any of these things or a combination of these things can get you to where you are trying to go. Some of resources that I use, that Awalin might have used, some of you on the call might use: YouTube, LinkedIn Learning, personal projects, Udemy, Coursera, Google's free resources, WiCyS, and resume revamps, and continuous learning, some certifications, CompTIA provides, A plus, Net plus, and Security plus. I actually just achieved all three of these certifications. And then the Institute's SANS, ISC2. And then if you wanted to go a cloud architect route, GCP, which is Google, AWS, Azure, etc. And so, as promised, I was going to make sure we got to some questions. We have a few minutes to answer some questions.
So we are running a little close to time, but I do want to take a chance to answer some of the questions that have come in because there's been a lot, which is super exciting. And I'm going to just preface now, we're not going to be able to get to all of the questions. Please feel free to connect with Michelle and Awalin after on LinkedIn. So I'm going to hit on, there's been a lot asking people who have gone the non-traditional route, and what I'm going to try to sum up a few. But a lot of them were asking if they're coming from a non-traditional route or from a different industry altogether, what specific roles should they look for in cybersecurity? What skills should they be really trying to hit? And do they really need that bachelor's degree into master's? Or do you think that is that needed if they would step into management role? I combined a lot of questions into one, but I'm really trying to get a lot here.
So that's interesting. So that was my motivation for getting a degree. Not only do I want to grow with cybersecurity, but I think it will be more attractive when I want to go after leadership roles eventually in my career. But I don't think necessarily starting out that it is a priority or a blocker in transitioning. I would say definitely start with the resume revamp and a role that is attractive to you. And first thing first, just like technology is broad, cybersecurity is very broad. So please try to align with things that are of interest to you. So I can't say, or Awalin can't tell you what would be interesting to you or where you would thrive. That is something that you will have to research. And then once you research and find that role, start looking at job descriptions and kind of aligning with the skills that you already have and the skills outlined in the job description. I hope that answered.
I think so. And I wanted to sort of highlight, I think, would you say it's helpful maybe getting into an organization, finding that spot in that niche, and then if the goal is management and the end goal is hitting into leadership, to maybe take advantage of organizations that have, on the job training or set aside budgets for your professional development to then work on a degree that would help elevate you to that next level. Do you think that's a good route?
Yeah, I definitely think that that's the route that I've taken. So I definitely advocate that that is definitely a successful pathway, especially to leadership. I definitely take advantage of the resources provided by the organization that you're working for. So even prior to Workday, my old companies, I will take advantage of the learning resources, and again, continuously upskill in those roles.
Yeah, I want to add to that.
Yeah.
I think even within the organization, there are a lot of resources, and it's not just like online courses. I think the best thing that works for me, I just talk to people.
Yes.
I have lunch with people. I'm walking around at Workday in my office, and hi, Michelle. And then I learned about this exciting project she is doing, and I'm like, oh wow, that's exciting. Can I like latch in and work on this small component, and maybe I learn from you and I can contribute something. And then I can ask my manager like, hey, it's not my core day-to-day job, but I want to work with this team in this particular project, and give me like 20% time. And if that 20% time works for me, then I can get more time. So it's not just my individual goal. If I can align my goal with company's goal, I think it helps. So even I think all of my jobs, I try to talk with people from different teams and learn from them what they're doing. And this is how I try to like stay up to date, like what people are doing. It's not always possible
Yeah.
to just go to a conference and always like go to different events and fly. But even in big organization, even for small organization, like so many people, so many talented people, yeah, talk to them. Have one-on-one, have like a Zoom coffee chat, that helps.
Definitely.
I agree. When my previous organization, if I thought somebody was doing something interesting or their research, I would like, hey, why don't we get lunch and like let's chat about it. Like, tell me more. Tell me more about this. That's how I learned about machine learning, because that was a concept I had not heard of before my previous organization. So I agree. I think just asking people questions that maybe they're doing something that's really interesting, and it opens your door up, because there's so many different possibilities in cybersecurity. Like, the industry is just endless. So it's great to see like, oh, what are you working on? That's interesting. But we are at time, and we're actually past time. So I appreciate everyone who is here today and joined the webinar. It's been an absolute pleasure to have both of you here today. Thank you so much for sharing your pathways into cybersecurity. It is an industry that has so many different options and so many different pathways in. And I know at WiCyS, we love to hear about them, and we love to be able to give sight to that. So I really appreciate both of you sharing your journeys with everyone. Again, please feel free to connect with any of us on LinkedIn if you would like to continue the conversation. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.